All right, so we're live. Just want to get a quick sound check from you guys to make sure that we don't have any problems like last time. All right, well, we're just going to roll with it. All right, so markets obviously getting a dip here today. And we talked about this yesterday. That's why I titled the video, Who Could Have Predicted This? But every single time, it's really since, you could even make a case February and January too. But really, we just dip into Opex every single month. And it's getting to the point where it's so obvious that you have to wonder how long it's going to play out for before there's a rug pull. And either it doesn't dip in Opex or it dips and the buy the dip doesn't work. So, but it's getting. I mean, it's really all over Twitter. I mean, hearing chatter Sunday night about guys. Oh, you going short into Opex? Yeah, of course. I mean, it's getting a little crowded and a little ridiculous. And you notice how they always have these Fed speakers. Powell is talking today. They always have these guys speaking during Opex week. It's like almost as if they're trying to manipulate the market. Who would have thought that? But yeah, so markets getting a bit of a bid off the lows here, bouncing off the 20-day moving average on the daily SPY here. E-mini obviously doing the same thing. But yeah, decent little dip here. Now, you guys probably heard me harping about the SMH, the semis all day long. Probably tired of it, but it's so important here, and this will help your analysis so much to watch the semis. You watch them like a hawk. So we had this previous all-time high. You tried to break out, you couldn't. Pulled back, had a failure here. Then you had kind of an exhaustion move. At least it looks like an exhaustion move now because it's failing. And now the semis are pulling back, and they're actually back below this pivot top. And if you notice intraday, so we sold off a little bit, and as soon as the semis back tested this, it became resistance, and that's what triggered the sell-off in the equity market. So that's why I'm watching those semis so closely, because they will tell you a lot about what is going on in the market. But another news here, we talked a little bit about Tesla earlier. The Tesla hitting this trend line here. It's into some support. It is getting a little bit of a bid off the lows, so that's being defended for now. It looks like it's going to float up into the close here. So take a look at Tesla later, and ARK as well. So ARK kind of had this little trend line going on here and broke through that yesterday, and now looks like it's going to confirm that. So ARK under a little bit of pressure here too. Yesterday, I believe I talked about cycles. I said I don't have a cycle date, but so I did some work today, and I do have one possibly for next week. I'm working on it, but it won't be until at least next week if the numbers are crunched right. But if that all works out, I'll let you guys know about that sometime like this weekend or whatever. So potentially we have a cycle pivot coming up here, but it won't be until after Opex week. By the way, keep an eye on Peloton here. This had a nice move up today, and then you had about 3-4 hours of consolidation, and now getting a little bit of a pop, and this might want to run into the close, so that'd be good for our Peloton position. I really love this chart now. I love what it's doing. Yeah, so I love how it, again, I love the chart pattern, I love the weekly, I love the daily, but what I really like also is that you sold off into Opex, and typically stocks that are beat up going into Opex tend to get a bid, and vice versa. If a stock's really overbought, tend to sell off. And then you had this kind of test candle yesterday, Monday. You rose back above that, closed on the 100 moving average. you save this inside bar low, and now you're getting a pop here. So Peloton should get going here. It looks like it wants to break loose and attack these moving averages. So really liking what I'm seeing here on Peloton. Hopefully we can get a little push into the close. That'd be awesome. It is inching up a little bit here as we speak, so we'll keep an eye on that. Let's see, what else are we looking at? So Budweiser got hit a little bit today. Not the worst thing going on here, but you know, it's taking a little bit of a hit, but it's, again, another trade based off of the weekly time frame. This should get going tomorrow, though. Again, this is also beat up going into Opex week. I also like this, but yeah, just kind of hanging in there right now. But this should get going tomorrow, though. So we'll be watching that one. And Snowflake, of course, we got to talk Snowflake. Again, this one coming back in just a little bit again today. We talked yesterday about how, again, this is an overbought name coming into Opex, although it's not ridiculously overbought. It's just kind of holding this 20 moving average. But, you know, not surprising to see a little bit of pullbacks. Had a nice move off the lows, but nothing wrong with this. It's still holding trend, and we're just going to ride this one. Another trade that I'm kind of looking at, I have on the radar here, potentially, is Roku. So this one would be a long, and it might hold up here. You had a nice tail candle at the 200 moving average on yesterday, and you're kind of holding inside of this range today. But if this flushes down into this 340, 320 level, I'd probably pull the trade. If it does it in the next, you know, 2-3 days without consolidating, I'll probably pull a trigger on a long. So just be on watch for that. So yeah, looking at Roku there, I like that. As long as it can get down there in a straight line, I don't want to see it chop there first. So what else are we going to talk about? So gold, we talked yesterday about gold possibly pulling back off of this 20 moving average. It's doing exactly that. But one thing I like about this right now is that it's only down 1/4%. And meanwhile, the dollar is up 0.5%. But the dollar having a really strong day. Yeah, what can you say? This is looking really strong here. And it's probably why the market's not really getting that type of V-shaped buy the dip that we're used to seeing when the dip is bought. I mean, usually by now we'd already be you know, probably up to 446 or something like that. But yeah, so dollar, I mean, this is the elephant. I'm not hearing anyone talk about the dollar, honestly. So this is an elephant in the room that you know, a lot of people are ignoring, at least I think so. But yeah, so dollar looking really good here. I just posted this on Twitter. Copper. This is technically, if it closes down here, this would be a triggered head and shoulders. However, I'd want to see it trigger on the weekly. So meaning if we close below this by Friday, this would be a much higher percentage chance of playing out. But they could easily save it before then. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, that's head and shoulders on copper. So just keep an eye on that. I just noticed that today. So copper getting hit down over 2.5% there. So that's looking a little soft. Some other areas are looking pretty soft today too. Home builders getting hit. Had a nice little bounce off the lows. Then you had this little nice pop here. Tried to consolidate. Now it's failing. So a little bit of supply coming in on the home builders. Energy getting hit again today too. Crude's still holding that 65 handle though. I talked about that one. It's still holding on. So it hasn't broken down yet. It's hanging by a thread, but it's there. But the problem with crude right now is you look at like XOP. We can get XOP to come up. There we go. So XOP taking out this pivot here. And again, this 200 moving average is decent support, but it's not major because you've already come down and you've consolidated here. And essentially what you're doing is you're building up an army here. So this 200 moving average might not hold. XOP, OIH also soft, rolling right over through the 200 through this pivot now. So this looks like it wants to go down and test the 167 handle. So yeah, some energy looking a little soft here. Again, IWM, the 200 also is minor. Again, moved down, bounced, basically kissed it, and now you're coming back. So it could hold up for a few days, but this probably breaks, honestly. IWM's not looking good unless they really work hard to save this. Um, and maybe it holds up in Opex, but small caps are looking really soft right now. And yield's really not doing a whole lot today, basically just scratching out a fractional gain. So it looks like that whole move over the last 6 months in small caps was just distribution, to be honest. So real strength in the market today in healthcare. XLV, this thing is just absolutely. I mean, we looked at some overbought charts, extended charts last night, but this one's pretty bad too. But especially for the size of the companies that are in this, UNH and stuff, this is just getting a little ridiculous. Utility is also pretty strong today. Again, pretty overbought short term, but holding up. So what can you say? That's where the strength is in the market right now. Let's see. I don't think I had anything else really to cover. Check in. What's going on here? So yeah, Peloton getting a nice push, up 3% now. And market's just kind of hanging in there. Probably don't really do. I mean, we only got about 15 minutes left, so that I doubt they do a whole lot more. But yeah. Yeah, so Amgen. So when I was talking about Amgen, I talked about Netflix as well. I'm not saying that like they're like screeching buys or anything, but what I was really referring to is if you look at a longer term chart of these names, look at what Amgen's done. It's not extended. It's not, it's not parabolic. If you look at like, Goldman, some of these names are just, the large cap names are just so, yeah, Goldman, Google, this is insane. Microsoft. But like names like Netflix, Amgen, if you told me I had to hold one of these for the next 12 months, I would pick, probably Netflix or Amgen or something like that. And Amgen actually took a bit of a hit on earnings, so that's trading at a little bit of a discount. So maybe not the worst time to start looking at this one. But yeah, I mean, if I had to pick, because some of the these FANG stocks are just so ridiculously overbought long term, especially Google and Microsoft. Yeah, I talked a little bit about Tesla, but I'll just go over it again. So you're in this channel here. We went up here, had kind of a bullish consolidation. Now that broke down, so that's a failed bullish bull flag there. But again, it's being defended. They're defending this green bar, and they're defending the moving averages and this lower channel trend line, at least for now. It was getting a little bit of a float into the close. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a little bit off the lows. But nothing crazy that would suggest there's a serious dip buying. And then like ARK, which is kind of tied to Tesla, also had a bit of a trend line breakdown here as well. But again, it's holding on. If it loses this pivot, though, it's going right back down to 105, 106, possibly through $100. Well, but yeah, there's a little bit of weakness out here today. But tomorrow's tomorrow. Who knows? They could just gap this thing up on light volume tomorrow. So right now, where I'm at, this is, to me, it's a prove it market. Yeah, I don't trust anything that this market does at all as far as the major indices are concerned. For the most part, it's just the only certainty right now is that we're in this channel, and until that changes, we're just in this channel. Now I can, come up with some predictions, and I do again, like I am working on some cycle stuff, and that has worked out. But the most amount we got out of it was like 4 or 5% in March, and then 3% in June, and then 3%. So until we get a confirming move, we're just going to try and find the best swing trade setups we can get. But yeah, and accumulate volatility as it gets cheaper. VIX getting a little bit of a pop today though, but coming back in. So not a terrible move though. But again, you can see what they do here. They're suppressing VXX, as they're selling the market. And that's what they do during Opex week. It's very typical. Basically, it allows them to push the market lower without causing an actual like panic sell. Yeah, Peloton getting a nice bid here. So that's good for us. Let's take a look at the diamond a little bit. Diamond down 1%. Diamond's a little soft today. I wonder what's keeping that down, but it is price cap weighted. Probably, I think Goldman makes up a large weighting now because of how expensive their share price is. It's probably why the financials are down. All right, yeah, Peloton running a little bit here at the highs of the day. Nothing too major. You know the drill. Dollar threatening a breakout. Peloton killing it right now. I love this. Love this setup here. I would have been happy with a close above 112 today, but it's really exceeding expectations. So this is really killing it. Fareed basically went over how this whole thing is basically clockwork with Opex, and it's getting really crowded to the point where people are literally, you know, talking Sunday night like, hey, we're going to be short this week, right? Because it's Opex. I mean, look at every single week short, sell off, sell off, sell off, sell off every month, and eventually there's going to be a rug pull. But when does that happen? You know, who knows? But this market's just hanging in there, and a lot of individual names are getting beat up. So, but I do like. I did talk a little bit about Roku, so keep this one on the radar. If it gets down here quickly, like within the next couple of days, I don't think it does because it probably gets a bounce here. But if it does, watch this one for the long side. 320, 340 area, that's really good support on Roku. Look at this trend line. That's a monster trend line. Should you at least get a little bit of bounce off of that. So that might be a quick one we look to do. Discovery. Yeah. You know, Michael Burry's largest holding is Discovery. I just read that today, actually. I did not know that. I knew that Soros was in it. I knew that someone else like David Einhorn or somebody's in it. But yeah. So basically, this is such a broken chart. It's really not much to analyze other than you're holding this support area. The reason to own this is because there's really not much downside. Like if the market were to have a correction, this is already so oversold and so beat up. I mean, maybe it gets back down to the 25 handle if we sell off, but this is a buyout candidate. You know, Netflix can buy them out. Comcast was in talks about buying out Viacom, so you know Discovery is going to be in there, and there's a reason why people like Burry and Soros are owning these. Because first of all, Viacom pays a 2.3% dividend, and actually that's not a bad pattern there on Viacom. Little inside bar you're holding there. Well, actually, it looks like you closed below it, so never mind. But anyway, yeah, like from a risk reward standpoint, you just get paid to own it, 2.3%, and their forward PE is less than half of what Apple's is, or really any stock, the average stock in the S&P. And they're a buyout candidate. I mean, Comcast could decide that they're going to pay $50 a share for them, and it gaps up, 20% tomorrow. So definitely, that's a good reason to own it. As far as swing trading and technicals, there's no tech. This is such a broken chart. But yeah, if you want to own it for that, I have no problem with it. You just tuck some away. Yeah, so gold, you touched on this. So remember yesterday we were talking about it. Probably pulls back off the 20. That's exactly what it's doing. And so thing is with gold here, it's impressive that it's only down 0.2% when you had the dollar up 0.5%. Look at this move here. Nobody's talking about why is no one talking about the dollar? I don't understand. It's like the elephant in the room, and this is threatening a breakout right now. And it's probably why the market's not bouncing as much as it is. But yeah, so dollar up 0.5%, gold only down 0.25%. The problem with gold right now, and I've been saying this, the GDX is getting hit, and the GDXJ just made a new low. So these, I just do not like these patterns. Like I want to see the miners do something. So they tend to be leading indicators for gold. So you know, hopefully we get to trade this soon, but we're just going to let it shake out a little bit and wait for a pattern, because this thing gold's been really volatile lately. There's a lot of manipulation going on, and there's a lot going on with bonds, and there's a lot going on with the dollar, and yeah, gold's just a little tricky right now. So we're just gonna be patient with it. It'll give us a buy. Just, you know, we'll wait. Yeah, and the dollars had. I mean, look at this. It bottomed in January, and this is a pretty vicious W pattern, and you're cracking through this trend line. You haven't really, I mean, you broke through it on the daily, but not so much on the weekly. But yeah, this is like threatening the market, and hardly anyone's really talking about it, honestly. At least that I haven't heard anyone. But I will say, if the dollar breaks higher and gold sells off, it could cause, or it could present an epic buying opportunity. Because historically, I'm sure you guys are aware, during periods of panic, we see the dollar increase as there's demand for cash initially, and gold will sell off for margin or whatever is going on. But then gold and the dollar will go up simultaneously because they are safe haven plays. So that's something that I've been thinking could be a possibility for months now. It hasn't happened yet, but it's definitely a scenario I'm prepared for. Yeah, I'm bullish on gold long term. They're printing $120 billion a month. That's all you need to know. Actually, I'll ask you a question. Which, over the last 50 years, which asset has performed better, gold or the S&P 500? And yes, that's a trick question. It's actually gold. If you go back to 1971, gold is up roughly 500%, and the S&P is about 450. And when I heard that, I actually read that last week, and actually blew my mind. I never would have thought that. But gold will be fine. The people who try to tell you that it's not an inflation, oh, it's failed as an inflation hedge, the Pomplianos of the world, they don't know what they're talking about. That, you know, most of the people who hate gold now are Bitcoin cultists. And I've got nothing wrong with crypto, but I mean, like, it's a church. Yeah, yeah, Fareed. That was one thing I disagreed with Gammon on. He was talking about it was a while back. You know, he was talking about how, you know, investors lost confidence in the Fed because we had that margin call Monday last February, and it was like No, that's not it. It's just margin calls. People aren't selling gold. Gold did exactly what it was supposed to do. You know how many hedge funds, family offices, and investment bankers and everything were glad that they owned gold bullion that they could sell to cover their margin calls? I mean, that's what gold's for. It's for, SHTF scenario. That's what it's for. And that's exactly what it did. And then, of course, the dip was bought because it's a safe haven. But yeah, I mean, that's what gold does. That's what it's for, and it's functioned like that throughout history. Yeah, sand will be fine. Actually, sand and WPM. I don't think I'll ever trade a mining stock ever again. The royalty companies just outperform. They're just so much less exposed to all the political risk and everything. But yeah, Wheaton and Sandstorm are great holds. A nice Roman toga. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what it's for. Yeah. You what? And another, I've made this connection before. Like some people are like, oh, Wall Street doesn't know what they're doing. They sold gold when they should have been buying. It's like you don't understand. They didn't want to sell it. Like they didn't want to sell Amazon either, but they did. I mean, the fundamentals for this company were obviously spectacular. Everybody knows that, but it still sold off anyway. Because I mean, what are you going to do when you're getting margin called for $6 billion? Well, what's your largest holding? Oh, Amazon, Microsoft. You got to take some off the table there. Otherwise, Morgan Stanley is going to do it for you, and you're not going to like it when they do it. I think Jackson Hole is the 23rd, so Monday. Yeah, Farid, we've talked about that before. I think you know my thoughts on that. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Um, maybe next week I'll talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, and it seems crazy to even like think of it, but yeah, it can happen. There's some pretty big long term cycles that are converging between this year and next year. Yeah, JP Morgan, they were just basically, I don't know if it was an empty threat. I mean, I know that they were just raising the intraday margin requirements. Um, so it's not like you know they're really like threatening. They just wanted to prevent like a Bill Wang scenario. Archegos Capital. There's a market closing, by the way. A little bit of a squeeze in the quote. It just works every time. Like traders are trying to short this whole move up, and then they have to cover it. It just never fails. Anyway, Peloton getting a nice move into the close. A little bit of a dip there, but close above 113. Let's take a look at the daily. Up 3% on the day. Nice move. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so everything kind of squeezing up just a little bit into the close here. Yeah, Jordan, I don't think there's going to be a March drop. Um, that was a real true black swan. Um, the way that like bears start, Actually got a perfect example here. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah. So we're looking at 2011 here. Like this is how, this is more so what I would be like looking for. Not like this to a T, but you see it. Then you have some pretty big down days and down weeks, but then it's kind of a rolling top, then another pretty sharp sell off, but not straight down. Typically, when the when stocks go straight down, that's the end. That's when you buy, because they only go straight down after everybody's already given up and capitulated. Like right in here, see how it's rolling, and then it started getting momentum, and then down, 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 and that's when the bottom starts to put in. Right. Yeah. What we had last year was an anomaly. I mean, there's never been anything like that ever that I can think of, where the entire global economy just shuts down, like on a basically the drop of a dime. JD, yeah, I was looking at that earlier. This one's tough. I wouldn't own it, or I wouldn't look to own it right here, but it's holding on to it might hold on. It might hold up for a little bit longer. You got, let's see, June to about August. Yeah, so like 2 months or so of consolidation here. But then actually, well, I don't know about this, because you did kind of consolidate above it. So, I mean, this is vulnerable, but these Chinese names are just tough, because at any moment the CCP could just come up with some news and say like, oh, we're actually going to lighten restrictions, and they could gap up 10%. But I think that long term, China's a great sector to like. I know probably some of you guys probably disagree with me, but um, it's probably worth some of the risk, because Asia. I mean, like Asia's the future. I mean, if you just ask Jim Rogers, the dollar's not going to be around forever, and I think China has their own problems, but they seem to be on top of things much more than we are, and they're not divided like our country is. But I mean, like, who knows? In 10, 15 years, Alibaba could be the next Amazon. So, but yeah, right now, I wouldn't look to own this as a swing trade at all. You'll have, if this starts flushing, you'll have a little bit of support here, but ultimately, your big level is right around 45, 47. But yeah, some of these ADRs are just getting annihilated. TME all-time low. This thing's bludgeon. I mean, but some of these are just, to be a contrarian, you could also say like this is insanely oversold. Now, should it have been up at $32? No, but $7, $8, Bip Shop. Yeah, some of these names are just ridiculous. I mean, this is insane. Yeah, it's sad, but it's like you're watching the decline in slow motion, and there's like nothing you can do about it. I mean, they have their own problems. Like they have some serious problems over there in China, but they're much more on top. Like their government's much more on top of things as far as just being cohesive, and they're not divided like we are, and they're very conniving over there as well. Yeah, the only difference is Discovery's not in a downtrend. It's just kind of sideways. These are all in major downtrends. But all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna get going. Thanks for coming out. Yes, one more check here. Yeah, so futures basically flattish. Nothing really going on there. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, with this whole, I feel like the bulls are even getting tired of this market. It's just so ridiculous and predictable. But you get the sense that everybody's just kind of like waiting for the correction to happen, and it's just like hasn't come yet. But we'll see what happens. We got Jackson Hole next week. Markets probably hold up until then. I'm working on a cycle date, so maybe that can give us something. But yeah, outside of that, you guys take care. I will talk to you tomorrow. All right, thank you.